This is the keynote presentation tonight. Every month we do a different keynote presentation. Wholesaling is a great strategy and is usually considered a beginning strategy for real estate investors. But even though it's a beginning strategy, it does require that you have a pretty good level of knowledge of some of the basics, some of the foundational skills of a good real estate investor. And what that really means is you have to do your number one job. And what did Phil tell you that your number one job was for a real estate investor? Marketing and marketing and marketing and marketing and marketing, right? So you've got to be good at marketing. If you are a wholesaler in here tonight and you're not using at least 3 or 4 different marketing strategies, to me, you don't qualify as a wholesaler, and to me, you're probably not generating enough leads to make a living. Your other requirements as a wholesaler is sales and negotiation. You actually have to know how to put a property under contract. You have to know how to come up with those numbers, both the average, both the ARV, what the house will ultimately sell for at the time that the repairs are done, as well as what the contractor bids are going to come in at to hit that ARV number. You also have to be, and you also, after you have that information, have to be pretty good and pretty comfortable about putting a property under contract, right? Talking to a seller, understanding their needs, and winning that contract over someone else. Getting those repairs and getting the ARV right, that's going to be good not only as you're dealing with the seller, but also as you're dealing with other investors on the back end trying to sell it. But as a wholesaler, you will ultimately develop a lot of the foundation level knowledge that you will need to eventually transition into some of the other strategies as a real estate investor. A lot of people start with wholesaling and then graduate to other more profitable strategies as they move forward. Some of the strategies to the investor is this is the ultimate no money strategy, and we're not people who only talk about no money strategies, right? But this is the one, right? This is one of the big ones. There are a couple other ones, but this is the one big one. Very little barriers to entry. You get all of the reward and none of the risk. So you get all of the risk-free profit and you hand someone else all of the risk-full profit. It generates quick cash for you as a real estate investor. Usually you're buying it and closing it and getting your money within 2 weeks to 30 days. You found it, you're only in the deal long enough to get paid, and it's a great way to gain experience either by shadowing someone else or just kind of getting to know the market as a real estate investor without having all the risk of the remodel and of the market. And I'll tell you, there's nothing that will make you more of a magnet for other investors and a magnet for networking like coming up and saying, hey, I'm doing 4 hours a week on marketing. I'm sending 2,000 letters a month on marketing, and I'm generating a lot of leads, and I need someone with a lot of cash to be able to buy these leads from me. Would you be interested? Are you looking for leads, right? That's a great way to make friends and influence people, right? So it's a great networking strategy and an opportunity as well to partner up later. To the buyer that you're ultimately selling it to, man, they don't really have to do any of the hard work to be able to get that property under contract. They don't have to do the marketing. They don't have to work with the seller. They don't have to come up with kind of go through the challenge of building that relationship and getting that under contract, which for some people is a little bit uncomfortable. They just want the house and they want to get the house and then do their part, and they think that's the only part. But it's a great way to get deals without having to do any of the marketing to get the work done. So I'm going to go through kind of 12 simple steps that you guys need to think about as you are wholesaling as a real estate investor. And I'm going to break out each one of these steps individually on its own slide in 3, 2, and if you don't know how to use your camera phone, just figure it out and then take a picture of your neighbor's camera phone. And 3, I feel like I'm doing a countdown for my son. You better get in here now. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm sorry for the rest of you guys. All right, so step by step. So number 1, of course, your first job as a real estate investor, whether you're a wholesaler or doing any of the other investing strategies, is you've got to do the marketing. There are many ways you can do the marketing as a real estate investor. In fact, our Navy guy over here is going to let me borrow, and he doesn't even know because he's not paying attention right now, is going to let me borrow his real estate investor blueprint. So a lot of people ask us, well, what marketing strategy is best for me? And what we've done here is we've broken marketing out into offline marketing, online marketing, and branding. in truth, when we redo this thing, we're going to break it out into no money strategies and time strategies, right, and money strategies. Because as a real estate investor, everyone's marketing plan is different based on how much money or how much time that they have, right? If you don't have any money, you better have a lot of time as a real estate investor, and the marketing strategies you use will be very time focused. If you don't have a lot of time because you're working 50, 60 plus hours a week, then all of your marketing strategies will be financial based, right? You're going to be doing a lot of direct mail. We do we do commercials, we do radio, TV, billboards. Those are the big money things, right? But if you have time, you better be out door knocking. You better be driving for dollars. You better be putting out bandit signs. You better be knocking on a pre-foreclosure list, right? And if you do all that, you will get lucky enough to get a call from a motivated seller, right? That's like, what happens when you're that first time you get that call from that motivated seller? What do? What did you say? You freak out. It's roughly like this. Pretend this is a phone. It's like, oh my God, what do, here, you take it, right? What do I do? What do I say, right? So if you're lucky enough to get that call, guys, you had better pick up the phone. How many of you guys have called a bandit sign on the side of the street that says, "We buy houses"? How many of you guys? Raise your hand. Leave your hands up if the person on the other end lets you go to voicemail. Why do you spend all that time, effort, energy, money, whatever, and then let a seller call go to voicemail? You guys in here, you guys are not going to let that happen, right? You guys are going to promise me if you get that call from a motivated seller, you will not let it go to voicemail. You will get that lead while it is hot, because if you don't, I can promise you, and I tell investors this all the time, the lead, that opportunity doesn't go away. It just goes to somebody else, and you get to pick and choose whether or not you get it when you get that opportunity put in front of you. So you get the call from the motivated seller. Step 2, sales and negotiation. Now, should this really be called sales and negotiation? What are you really doing here when you get that call? What are you really doing when you get them on the phone? Making an offer? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're building a relationship. You're building a relationship. And act that way, guys, and act that way. I see a lot of investors who just want to, and I've done this myself before I had to recorrect and realign. Don't just make it the facts, right? Make it personal. Make sure that they know that you care. Maya Angelou, see my Maya Angelou fans? Maya Angelou fans in here? Right, one of her famous quotes is, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So please make sure that they know that you want to help them, that you're approaching them with a service heart. And again, all the things that you thought you were going to do as a big-time real estate investor, I'm going to be flipping houses, right? You didn't think you're going to have to develop you have to develop relationships with people to be able to even get these opportunities. So when you get that call in, one of the first things you guys are going to want to do as you start to build this relationship is make an appointment to actually see that house. Make an appointment to actually see that property. And ask them, can I come over tomorrow? Will 10 a.m. work or will 2 p.m. work, right? Give them opportunities to choose, but only give them 2, right? Don't tell them when are you available. And then after you set the appointment, then you want to ask them all of the ugly stuff about their house and their loan and their situation, right? Then you want to ask them what kind of repairs are needed on that property. Then you want to ask them what their motivation is for selling. What's a great question to ask to be able to find out what someone's motivation for selling is? Why are you selling? What about asking them, right, as Gareth says, when would you like to sell the house? When would you like to sell the house, right? If they say by December the 6th, which is what? Here in Texas? Which is what Tuesday? It's the first Tuesday of the month, right? If they say by the first Tuesday of the month, what do you know? They're motivated, right? They're motivated. If they say, I don't know, maybe in the next couple of months, what do you know? You know nothing. Yes, Sean, you know nothing. You cannot assume. They may be trying to negotiate with you, right? And they don't want to look like they're all motivated, right? So they're not going to tell you that I need to sell it tomorrow would be good, right? They're not going to say that, right? So continue that conversation, right? One of the things I like to do is I'm looking them up on the foreclosure list, or I'm looking them up to see what mail campaign this name came from, so that I can know, is this a probate lead? Is this a divorce lead? Is this a foreclosure lead? Is this a 30, 60, 90-day late lead? What kind of lead is it, so I know whether I know what's really going on here. Get the condition, get the repairs needed. How do you do that? What questions do you ask to figure out what kind of repairs are needed on a property? Say it again, Sean. How's your plumbing? Poop goes down and out. I think it's good. When was the last time the cabinets were remodeled? What else? How do you ask them? How do you ask them? What do you say? What have you done to the house? What, Brian? What's the one thing you don't like about the house? What else? When did you last update it? Yes, sir. Yes, yes. So write down every single component of the house and ask, when was the last time you painted? When was the last time you put in new flooring? When was the last time you updated the kitchen? When was the last time you updated the bathrooms? When was the last time you got a new air conditioning system, new roof, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? When was the last time? Because if you ask them stuff like, if you were you, and someone say like, oh, well, if you had $5,000, what would you replace? Who cares, right? If you ask them what's the condition of your house, and they say, oh, it's in good condition, right? Is condition a subjective question or an objective question? It's very subjective. Is when was the last time you replaced objective or subjective? It's very objective, right? You can actually put, if you know that they last replaced the roof here in Austin, Texas 15 years ago, what do you know about that roof? It's time to go, right? It's time to go. Does that give you an answer so that you can come up with a bid? Yes, it does. And if you have all that sort of information, you may be able to make an offer over the phone after a while. Maybe not initially, but for me, I'm able to do that because I'm able to look up the area, pull my CMA, right? Do my analysis as I'm talking to them on the phone, go through the when was the last time. What's the other thing you want to know that sometimes is deceptive? Kind of not a deceptive question, but sometimes something that kind of gets past us all. Like what else do we want to know? Not about when everything was replaced, but how do we want to know about how they are living? Or who they are living with. Say that again? Animals. Is that a dog that I heard in the background? Oh, it's 18 dogs. Okay, well, no wonder, right? So even if they just replaced everything, because literally, one of the seller leads that I had just replaced like flooring, just repainted, just did all new cabinets in the kitchen and countertops in the kitchen 18 months ago. But they had 18 dogs, and for every month there was like a square inch of flooring and stuff was messed up, right? And then what's the other kind of similar question that you ask about that in the same vein? Smokers, good. What else? Kids, the other animals. Yes, yes. Gareth said kids. I didn't say kids, yeah. And always express your interest in the house. Sometimes I see investors that get very, like I don't want to act too like excited about this house, even though I'm really excited. Guys, act excited, right? I want this house. I want to get this house under contract, right? I want to buy this house. I want to solve your problem. I want to help you. And then after you do that, right, reconfirm the time that you guys are meeting. Because if you don't reconfirm the time that you're meeting, after they tell you all of the ugly stuff about their house, they're going to think, oh, man, they're not going to want my house. It's too messed up. And I'm going to go out and call someone else who might. Okay, so analysis and due diligence. How are you going to figure out the value of the property? What tools are you going to use to figure out the value of that property? What tools are you going to use? What? Yes, tax appraisals, okay, yeah. Who in here is using Zillow right now? Who in here is using Zillow? You're fired, Teresa. You're fired. Are you spending your money or are you spending Scott's money? Are you spending y'all's money? Okay. Okay, good. Guys, Texas is a right to privacy state. God bless Texas. That means the only thing that is recorded, right, that's in the history is the note, right, the amount that was financed on that property. Nowhere in the public records is it recorded what someone paid for that property. So that means Zillow's kind of guessing-ish, right? And what did we say the average price house was in the Austin Round Rock area? $358,000. Do you want to just kind of guess, right, on a $358,000 investment? This is the interactive part. Just no. Good. Okay, a few of you say no. I hope it's all of you guys, right? Do not make a major investment decision based on what you see on Zillow. And I'll tell you, any realtor, raise your hand in the room if you're a realtor, yeah? Whenever someone says Zillow or something like that, don't you just want to like punch them in the neck? Like it's like there's no worse place for information than that, right? From a realtor standpoint. So but as an investor, you have to have a great realtor on your power team, right? Who's going to be able to give you access and be able to give you CMA so that you can make a good investment decision on this particular property. Let's see. Again, we talked about how you estimate repairs as part of your due diligence. If you are good, if you are comfortable, and you went through and did the CMA while you were talking to them, right? Which I'm kind of multitasking while I'm talking to them. If you did good, if you went through and asked them all the questions about the condition of the property without asking subjective questions, right? Now you have the ARV. Now you have the repairs. So what can you do now? Using our math, right? So we can use our math, our 70% of ARV minus repairs formula. So for those of you who are comfortable about what you're hearing and how to kind of plug that in, you may make an offer over the phone. How do you make the offer over the phone? What do you say? What do you say? I'd like to buy your house. What else do you say? You want to know first from them how much they want for the house. There have been times when I have been so surprised, and Phil, I remember one time, like, Phil was so surprised, someone said, we bought this house on Harmon Avenue, right near 51st and I-35, and Phil asked the question, as he was going through the numbers, he knew what his number was, but he asked the question, well, what are you looking to sell it for? What are you looking to get out of this house? And the owner said, well, I'd like to get $70,000 out of it. And Phil did the happy dance, number one, which you guys met Phil, right? Can you imagine him doing a happy dance? He was doing like a happy dance, yes. So he did the happy dance. He's came into my office and he's like, go to the bank, get $70,000 cash, and meet me at 5304 Harmon, right? So if we would have made the offer first, we would have made an offer of like $115,000. Yes. So always ask that. In fact, after we bought the house, we got unsolicited offers from all you guys, right, other investors, for $115,000, okay? So always ask first. The time that you are surprised will be the time that, man, you will never give your offer first, right? So always get theirs first. If the numbers are close, set up and confirm that appointment and bring those offer documents with you to the meeting. You'll meet the seller at the house. Now, sometimes you get there and you find out that some of the things that they told you were true-ish. And sometimes you get there and you find out that some of those things were completely incorrect, right? That's why we never want to ask subjective questions, right? You may have to adjust the repairs on the spot. You may have to adjust your offer. You'll sign the agreement. So I'm saying the word agreement. I'm not saying the word contract. It is still a contract, but sometimes people feel better about signing an agreement more so than they do signing a contract. Yes, Sky? Assuming the house is as you have described it, and assuming that there are no additional repairs needed beyond what we've talked about today, then this will be my offer. Now, if I get there and I find that the fence is falling down or you drove your car through the garage door, then we may have to talk again, right? So, but I feel pretty good about my numbers based on everything that we've discussed so far. Foundation is one of those tricky things, though. Foundation repairs, foundation bids and foundation repairs. It's an art and a science, and sometimes I think it's more art than science. You will get 3 foundation companies out on the same house, and you will get bids from $15,000 to $35,000, okay? That gets a little bit tricky. When you are negotiating with the seller, you'll show $35,000 bid. When you are putting it into action as a real estate investor, you may use some bid that's more in the middle, right? But foundation repair, for me personally, it's hard to really get a feel for how bad that foundation is as you're just talking to them on the phone, right? So that one you want to pull in an expert. So I might use on average, especially if I know the area, I'm not only doing a foundation bid, repair estimate on there, but what else am I doing? What's the corollary to, what's some collateral damage that comes with foundation repair? Plumbing repair, right? So tribal knowledge, right, for real estate investors who have done it a few times is once you fix, and especially people who are here from like Oregon, right? When we fix foundation, we also fix plumbing. Washington, I'm sorry. So when we fix foundation here, we also fix plumbing. And if you don't do it at the same time, and you have to do it after you've completely repaired the house, which happens to a lot of new investors, and then their realtors get in there, and the buyer's agents will say, hey, I've sold a lot of houses over here, and every single house I've sold has had some type of plumbing repair. In the seller's disclosure, the seller didn't disclose that they repaired any of the pipes underneath. What does the realtor recommend to their buyer? A static test. A static test of the plumbing to make sure that there are no leaks under the slab, because for a linear square foot inside the house, jackhammering, it's about $100 to $125 a square foot to do the foundation repair. But if you just finish recarpeting, retiling, everything elsing, you are now tunneling, and the tunneling price is significantly higher than the jackhammering price, okay? Yes, ma'am. Foundations are bad here, yes. Same thing as they are in Dallas, yes. Yeah. If a house is old enough, it will need a foundation repair at some point, yeah. So also check and understand that there could be collateral damage either before or after that is the plumbing under the slab. All right, moving on. You may put a lockbox on the house, that way you can send your buyers there. One time when I was first starting in real estate, I had houses in Georgetown and houses in Dripping Springs. Holy hell, I was insane, okay? I put 25,000 miles in my first year as a real estate investor on my car. Lock boxes will help you, okay? Then you can just send someone out to see it without you having to be there. Yes, sir? Assuming the house is vacant, trust me, we always try and get it on a house where someone's living there too. Again, just for ease of getting in and out, because again, if you live in Georgetown, you get a house under contract in Dripping Springs as an example, you're not going to want to go out there every other day to meet contractors, to meet buyers, etc. So, and you'll explain that to your seller. Sometimes they'll say no, sometimes they'll say yes, but you always have to at least ask. Yes, ma'am. No lock changing. Yeah. You can also send them a contract via DocuSign. It's revolutionized, those electronic signatures revolutionize the way that we do business. You'll email that contract to the title company and let them know that the property will be assigned. At the time you go under contract, you will give option money to the seller, but when you deliver that contract to the title company, you will give earnest money to the title company. If you do not deliver option money to the seller, even if you wrote in that for $10 you're going to get an option period, if you don't deliver that to the seller within about 2 business days, then you still have a contract, but now you don't have an option period. If you do not deliver the earnest money to the title company within roughly 2 business days after going under contract, and if you had earnest money in your contract, now you have what's called an unenforceable contract, which means if one party decided to get out, specifically the seller, because one of you guys came in and offered something higher than what maybe I did, right, then the seller can now get out of that contract. So please follow that contract. It says this cute little thing in the contract. It goes like this: time is of the essence. 2 days is roughly what that means. So get that over there. Step 7, market the property to other buyers. So you'll reach out to your buyers list. Where do you create your buyers list? This is the interactive part. Yes, here. Good. All right, good. We got that. Landlords in the area, hard money lenders, IRA events, etc. You'll give your buyers the stats on the property, both the ARV, the repairs, and the rents. Why the rents? Why the rents? Because some of your buyers might want to, what do you guys want to do, John? You want to buy and hold, right? That's what you guys want to do, right? So some of your buyers may be landlords, right? And some of your buyers may be fix and flip buyers. So for the landlords, you definitely want to include those rents with them. And always make sure, and this is, I feel dumb saying this, but I have had new wholesalers give me deals and not tell me what their wholesale fee was until we got to closing. And I thought it was baked into the price, and they didn't realize that they had to tell me what it was, and that gets a little annoying. So please make sure that your price includes that wholesale fee. You'll meet those end buyers at a property, or you'll just send them with the combo code. A lot of the questions I get is, well, how do I protect myself? How do I make sure, this buyer doesn't go around me? Number 1, have it under contract. Number 2, sign a memorandum of contract with your seller. You can actually file that memorandum of contract with the county and attach that to your contract. That way, if the seller goes under contract with another buyer and it's at a different title company, when that title company pulls that title report, they're going to see your memorandum of contract, and they're going to say, what's this? And they're going to ask, can you go and talk to the Shinoa Grove lady and get her to sign this release of interest in this property, because I'm not going to close it and give you title insurance on this property until I make sure she's out of the picture. And when they call me, I'm going to say, what? What? Sean's going to say no. Perry's going to say what? I'm going to say I would be happy to release my interest in this property for a small fee, right? Yes, for a small fee. Yep. Well, it's important, right? So also a non-circumvent agreement. This is basically an agreement where I say, John, I have this property under contract with this guy, Sean. If you try and go around me, right, in the next 60 days or close with him directly, you still owe me my wholesale fee. And I might have you sign that if I don't know you or if I don't trust you, sorry, before I send you over and give you this guy's address, okay? Yeah? Real estate investing is unsanctioned, unmonitored, unregulated, right? You got to come up with your own things to be able to regulate to make sure that you get paid at the end of the day. You'll negotiate your wholesale fee with your end buyer, and you'll sign an assignment fee agreement. Some realtors say, well, hold on, you're acting like a real estate agent and you don't have a real estate agent's license. No, you have this property under contract. You have something called an equitable interest in this property. You are selling your contract. You're not selling or marketing for sale that property. Those are the words that you use to make sure you are not acting like a realtor, okay? Step 10, you'll substitute your name on the agreement with the seller name. How do you do that? How do you do this? People get freaked out when I say this, especially new people. You take your pen and you cross out your name, you put the other person's name, and then both parties' initial, okay? You can also do an amendment to the contract, which is a one-page amendment as well. This can also be done at closing, or usually to help the closer a couple days before. If you're making less than $10,000, usually I will do a single close or a single transaction, and I'll ask the title company for a blind HUD or blind closing disclosure statement. This means that only the buyer only sees the buyer side, the seller only sees the seller side. One of those two people needs to know how much you are making and needs to be okay with how much you are making. Usually it's your buyer, okay? So the seller does not know how much you're making, because sometimes you're making more than the seller, okay? And when a seller finds that out, sometimes things get more than a little sticky. So blind HUD is the term that you want to use. And people always say, well, I'm looking for a good, investor-friendly title company. How do I know it's an investor-friendly title company? Ask them, can you do a blind HUD with pass-through funding? Or can you do a blind HUD, or can you do a double close with pass-through funding? If they say, what? Then you just hang up and keep on dialing until you get to the next title company. If you're making more than $10,000 and you've never done business with this person, you will do a double close. Yes, it will cost you more money. You'll pay title insurance twice. So that means 1% of the sales price twice. So if you're wholesaling, if you bought it for $100,000 and you're reselling it for $150,000, there will be title insurance on the first close of about $900, and there will be title insurance on the second close of about $1,200, $1,300. This is the cost of doing business and making a lot of money and protecting that money that you are making. Got it? Step 11, you'll send your revised contract to the title company. Send them an invoice too. I have seen wholesalers not get paid because they didn't send an invoice, because they didn't tell the title company. And then the person who bought it on the other end said, well, sorry, it wasn't on the HUD. I can't give you the money now. Oh, that's awful. That's awful, but it does happen. So please send an invoice to the title company. Step 12, get paid a fee on the HUD one from your end buyer, cash the check, and then you want to rinse and repeat, do it all over again. You'll want to bring it, you'll always shop it to the buyer who you just closed with first, because you know that they are a qualified, certified buyer, and they're not going to hang you up at the last minute. Sales and negotiation, again, you want to build a relationship, you want to solve the problem, understand their needs and motivation. We usually sell as real estate investor based on fast, cash, quick closing, no realtors, no fees, a lot fewer risk, right? Your offer formula, we went over this at the beginning of the presentation. Typical offer formula is 70% of ARV minus repairs, minus whatever you want as a wholesale fee, okay? Minus whatever you want as a wholesale fee. If your end buyer that you're wholesaling it to is a retail buyer or a landlord, they'll pay maybe 90 or 95% of ARV minus repairs, which gives you some flexibility with the seller to pay more than this formula typically allows. So again, if you are just getting started, don't stray from this, what we call this maximum allowable or MAO formula, unless and until you can adjust your offer for the time value of money. So if it is a very quick rehab and your months of inventory are very low, you might pay a little bit more. You might adjust your offer for the renovation risk, usually downward. If the exit strategy for that particular property is to move walls and add another 1,000 square feet, you're taking on more risk. That means you might offer less. If it's just a paint and carpet job, you're taking on less risk, which means you might offer more. And then you may pay a little bit more, again, if you already have a buyer lined up and ready to go for that property. Power team, who do you have on your power team? Other investors, realtors, contractors, hard money people. Again, you find these folks at the Real Estate Investor Association. Glad you guys are here. Papering up the deal, you will use a standard state contract. It's the TREC contract. If you want that, it is free. You only have to Google TREC, T-R-E-C, and then click on forms and then look for the contract on that page. An assignment agreement, they have thousands of assignments agreements on Google. They're all more or less the same. They'll list the seller name, your name, the property address, maybe a legal description, what you're buying it for, your wholesale fee, and it'll have signature for all the parties, not all the parties, not the original seller, but for you, the investor, the middle person, the wholesaler, as well as for the end buyer. The truth about wholesaling, it's fun and easy money. It's a great getting started strategy, great networking strategy, and there's not a lot of risk, but there's also not a lot of consistent money being a wholesaler. There's not. How many of you guys have read the book The Millionaire Wholesaler? There is not a book called The Millionaire Wholesaler. And there is a reason, because you rarely get there, right? Ultimately, most people transition to other strategies. Someone asked me today, well, what's a typical wholesale fee? And I said, typical wholesale fee is somewhere between $5,000 and maybe about $20,000. That's about 80% of your wholesale fees. But I've wholesaled a property for $500, and I've also wholesaled a property for $75,000, right? It varies. But that $75,000 one, I have not been able to duplicate, okay? I'm always looking for that opportunity, so if you guys know. But the truth is, ultimately, eventually, you will graduate to other more profitable strategies. You will also incur more risk, but at the time that you're ready for that, you will be ready for those risks. Guys, any questions about the wholesale strategy before we wrap up the meeting tonight? And before we do, just guys, thank you all so much for coming out tonight and being part of our Real Estate Investor Association. Really appreciate you guys being here and being part of what we do and what we get to do.